work at the same time. Hey, yes. Hi, James. Hello, sir. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Cool. All right. Let's see. What do we have? Just give me one minute. I'm just trying to open the relevant info. How was your week so far? Were you guys able to go through the information that I've shared before?
Glance through it. I was hospitalized, so they didn't let me study over there.
Oh, wow. Hope everything was okay. Nothing serious.
Yeah, they're still investigating.
Okay. How about other people? All good so far?
Yes, I'm actually going back from class 1, 2, 3. I'm revising everything.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good idea. I think, and just don't get hung up on something if you don't understand anything.
Okay.
It's fine. You can skip that section and just move forward, because goal is not to master everything. Goal is to just remember there is something like this, so that you can speak through that. That's the only level that we have to reach so far. Mastering it will take some time. Once you start getting a job, finding a job, and once you start really working on some documents, you'll automatically start mastering those skills. But for now, our goal is to understand how things work. I'm not sure if everyone has joined the call or not, but I think we can probably get started. So let me share my screen. I had some questions that I was thinking to discuss in the class. While I'm pulling my notes, can someone tell me what is waterfall? Can someone describe that? Or agile? You can pick your answer, whichever you are comfortable with, and just go with that.
Should I make an attempt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody's going to laugh, okay? I'm drugged, so I have an excuse.
Okay.
So what I feel is these are, and from what you've taught us, these are SDLCs, software development life cycles, where methodologies, different approaches to doing projects, evidently from what we've learned in class, waterfall was the way people used to go, but that was, from initiation, planning, all the way to implementation, and then version updates. That came later. The implementation took at least a year or 2 years, and time to market and opportunity costs weren't really as exciting as when Agile came along, which is basically dividing the project or the software development lifecycle into phases, into units, not phases. Like you have a wish list, everybody sits together, and it's divided into epics and what's the other word? Epics and
Feature.
Feature.
Yeah, epics and features. And then after brainstorming, which is a large session, priorities are decided, where the least, where you figure out which units or which parts of the software will be launched first. You prioritize them. There's another word for it. I'm sorry, I'm not very technical. It's called
Whatever we have done in the BA class is not technical.
minimal viable. Huh?
Whatever we have done in the BA class, there is nothing technical in that. So when you say you're not technical, you're not expected to be technical.
All right.
But what we are speaking is not technical as well. Just want you to know that.
I mean, the word, sorry, the abbreviation MVP. I'm trying to understand, remember what
Minimal viable product.
Yeah, exactly. I knew MVP, but I didn't know the,
Mhm.
So, and based on that, instead of a 2-year life cycle or a 1-year to implementation life cycle, you can even do very large projects by dividing them into MVPs, into 1 or 2 week, usually 2 week.
No, I think you are. I understand what you're trying to say, but you're not using right jargons, and
Yeah.
I think it's all over the
Exactly.
place. So there is
Yeah.
nothing called units. First of all, in Agile we have sprint or iteration is what we said, right?
Yeah.
There is nothing called units, and I think still there needs to be a practice, and I think you guys will get it. Don't worry about this. I think just need to say it 3 or 4 times in front of mirror, and you'll get that. Whenever I take mock interviews for a lot of students, I give them like 1 out of 10. By the second week, they score like 7 out of 10. So it's not that difficult. I think it's just the practice. But what's important is for you all to remember is whatever you've studied in the class, try to at least remember those jargons, right? You cannot use wrong jargons in your interview. If you do not know something, it's okay to not say it. But if you say it and if it is wrong, you're gone, right? So you really want to choose your words carefully, and I think it's just a matter of freeing up yourself, like speaking with people, like at your home also, right? If you have a family member, just tell them, hey, just take my interview. Just write down something on the piece of a paper and tell them, hey, just make sure I'm reading through this properly without looking at it. Some practice, and you'll be there. It is not that difficult.
Mhm.
So today our goal is to practice. Yeah, go ahead, Samnit.
Okay, I have a question over here. So is it possible that we can write our own script?
Yeah, you have to.
I
Like-
mean, instead, because there is so much to memorize,
You have to.
it's like,
You have to
Okay.
write your own scripts. You have to write your own script, and hence I'm not giving you pre-made scripts from my side, because it will just not make sense to you. Everyone has their own comfort in the way they speak English, and in the way they want to remember things, or the way they have to format things. So you have to have your own scripts. I've given you bullet points in all the slides and on the material that I've shared with you. Try to use that bullet point and come up with your own script. Right?
okay.
But just remember to be in structure. That is the most important thing.
But it,
So
it doesn't matter if we use the simplest language, fine,
Yes,
right?
that's what
Yes.
my question would be.
simple, I would encourage you all to use simplest language possible. The only thing is that you should use jargons in that. When you use jargons, it does not mean that you're not being simple while talking through them, right? But you don't have to use fancy English words just to impress someone. That is not expected.
Yeah, just like you use like iterative, like it's it's an iteration process in
That's a
Agile,
jargon. That's a jargon, though.
right?
Sprint is a jargon. Sprint is a jargon. Iterative is a jargon. Wishlist is a jargon. Product backlog, sprint backlog, BRD, FRD, mockups, wireframes, prototypes, initial phase, requirement gathering phase, meetings, and all those things. These are all jargons. So you cannot goof up on this. But you can use your own simple English to frame your sentences and fit these jargons in them.
Okay.
Because basically Agile is like just to we can say like it's just to to speed the pace of the development, right?
That's not what you would define, right? Everyone knows what Agile is about. Nobody wants to know what is Agile. When someone asks you in the interview what is Agile, nobody wants to know what is Agile. What they
Right.
want to know is what is your experience in Agile,
Okay.
right? So you would never assume to say that, hey, this is how Agile works. This is the reason we do Agile for. No, you're on the wrong path. If they explicitly ask you what are the advantages of Agile, then you have to say that. Otherwise, your first impression is to tell them how did you work in Agile and how it could help them. That is the implied meaning of that question. I took an interview for a couple of people this week for my company, and I asked them a really, really stupid question. I asked them a question about, I was interviewing them for a product owner position, just for your knowledge. So I asked them a question, hey, what is the website or an application that you are that really annoys you, right? And why it annoys you or why it irritates you, and how would you go about solving that? So I literally started seeing people fumbled on the interview, and because it is so generic, so open, right? That is, it's an open question. There is no technical knowledge required here. But why do I ask this question? I want to make sure that whenever you're browsing any website, are you really thinking about customer experience? That when I'm going through any website, I instantly have in my mind, hey, this is a poor website, this is a good website, I can make this change here. If you're not that proactive, right, I don't want you to be a product owner or product manager for my company. So questions are super simple. All the BA and mostly if you are going for a BA or a product owner interview questions and answers, it will be all behavioral in nature. There is nothing like right or wrong. All they want to know always is what is your experience looks like and how quickly you can think on the spot, right? So and we interviewed one more developer in our company recently, and I just asked him a very simple question about, there was one technical word. I told him that assume that I don't know anything about technology. How would you explain this specific term to me? And that guy had like 20 years of experience. He could not even explain that to me in 2 lines. We didn't hire him. Why? Because that person does, you work for 20 years, and if you cannot explain someone what this technical term means in non-technical terms, then I don't need you. You're on mute, Shrey.
Why don't you hire one of us?
Because you guys are still being trained.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You had, in the previous question, you had asked that what is the most difficult scenario. So what kind of answer were you looking for?
I was not looking for any specific answer. I was trying to find out, when someone is using mobile application or website, is that person really paying attention to the experience of that application or a website? Answer could have been anything. They could have said Airbnb, they could have said Google's website, they could have said Apple, they could have said Uber application, doesn't matter. I was not looking for any specific kind of answer. I was looking for some actual experience that person had while using an application, which really bothered him, and he is aware that this is bothering me. If that person is not aware that this is bothering me, then there is a problem. You cannot be a product manager or a product owner, because this is the first thing you need to know. You need to understand customer's pain point. First thing you do is you make yourself as a customer, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we launch any product, I'm the first one to sign up for the product for my company. I'm always excited. Doesn't matter whether it's going to hit my credit score or whether they will be charging me interest. It doesn't matter. I'm the first one who will be signing up for my own product that I'm always building, because I want to go through that experience and see, right, how that experience looks like for our customer. So that was that was a key thing that I was looking for. So I think we have 15 more minutes right now. Let me go through some of the questions that I have in my list here, which we did not get through last week. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? So this is the list of questions that we have here. Agile overview, BRD components. What do you include in business requirements document? Agile versus waterfall, and pros and cons of waterfall and agile. So, and just hear me saying this, right? I'm literally putting myself on the spot right now. I have not done any prior preparation, but you could always say that I'm teaching this for so many years, so I have things on my fingertip. But every time whenever I say this is a different answer than what I would be giving in my previous class. Go ahead, Shrey.
So I have a question in mind. Everyone has this question in their mind. Like, so right now, do you think like we should just concentrate on, like, because we know like this, it's not hard to understand like about the interview thing, right? So do you think like we should concentrate on this thing only, or we should also like keep pressurizing ourselves to the technical part or everything else? Or do you think like we should just clear the interview first and then we can keep going?
It's an egg versus chicken problem. So clearing interview is not that crazy or that difficult, as long as you've understood everything that we've covered in the class. I'm saying understood. I'm not saying that you have to master that, right? So you need to know those jargons. If someone puts you on the spot, or if someone wakes you up from your sleep and asks you what is BRD, and if you're not able to answer that, then you're going to fumble in your interview.
Yeah.
right? So you really need to know, and the way I would suggest you is you don't have to remember anything. If you practice, if you really practice how BRDs are written, like I've given you one example for Uber driver, right? If you've really practiced how to create user journey, how to write use cases, if you've really practiced this thing, then you don't have to remember. You'll automatically remember these things. But problem comes when you don't practice enough, and then now you struggle, because after 3 or 4 weeks, everything will become French to you, right? Amount of information I'm sharing in the class, it's a lot. As I said, it will take you close to 5 years to even experience this. For some people, they take lifetime, but they still don't experience all these things that we're covering in the class. So, but I don't know which 20% or which 30% you will be using in your job. That's something I can't really predict, right? So I'm preparing you for the worst. And my expectation is that all the documents that we have created, BRD, then the user stories, then mockups, wireframes, user journey, then type of analysis like as is and to be, how to write the project charters. Start reviewing that information, because all those will be your interview questions and answers. That is exactly what they're going to ask you in the interview. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So you cannot just focus on interview and skip everything that we have done. Otherwise, it may be hard for you to. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to really keep up with the interview.
No, I'm not. I don't want to like. I'm not saying like we skipping it, but I'm saying it's too much pressure right now, right? So I'm saying, do we have to worry about like the technical part a lot? Like, you know, like I got stuck in the App Store diagram somewhere. Like, you know, I was figuring out, and at the same time, I was thinking like this is might not be that important. Like, I should just watch the videos of, you know, the interview.
So first of all, I think I want you guys to know. I think you all are thinking this way. So far, whatever we have covered in the class, there is nothing technical. So when you say that I want to get into this technical knowledge, stop using this jargon, please, because we have not done anything that is technical in the class so far. And absolutely, you'll get stuck at some points. If that is the case, just as I said, just skip that and move to the next topic. Don't hang up on a particular topic if you're not able to get that. Just call me and I'll explain you one more time whenever you have time. But don't hang on to the topic and just move forward. So goal is to I was thinking. So usually I give people a week and a half to 2 after the class is over, where they purely focus on interview, nothing else. But that 1.5 to 2 weeks would really work for you if you have followed everything in the class, right? So this is something, this weekly sessions that I'm doing, I've just recently added in my this batch. I was not having this one-on-one sessions every Friday, every Thursday with my other students previously. I just thought this is something that could be helpful. So I'm adding this in my list now, right? And I don't feel that you need to worry about the interview right now, because you're not there yet. I think focus on your classes first. Understand that knowledge. Without the knowledge, you'll have to ratify things for interview, which will not be a good idea. So focus on your classes first, and I'll give you 1.5 to 2 weeks, which you will just use to prepare for your interview and nothing else. Right? And once the classes are over, these Thursday classes are not going to get over. This will be continuing. So every week we'll discuss the same interview question and answers again and again. So don't worry about that. But understanding those things is first priority. Second priority is the interview. Until the class gets over, or a week after the class gets over. After that, interview becomes the first priority. Am I making sense?
So do we get to interview amongst each other and see, like, because that is something like a real experience. We need something like that.
I have not stopped anyone to have sessions.
But
you have teams. You guys can
no,
meet whenever you want.
you know, your presence is important because you're the one who's going
That's
to be
what I said,
judging
right?
us. Yeah.
That's what I said. Every Thursday, we are still going to have the interview class.
Okay. And for how long do we have that?
I'm not going to stop that.
Okay.
Clear. Right?
I'm not going to stop that, right? Every Thursday, we are going to have class, and we are going to put people on the spot where people can answer based on their preparation. And you might see that I'm also adding few more people in our Thursdays class when they're preparing for interviews from my past class and all. But this Thursdays class is very irrelevant of the batch. It's mostly about, hey, how are you going to interview? Because when one person gives interview, when someone is listening to that, that person also gets to learn. So I'm not planning to stop this Thursday thing unless there is something really crazy happening for me on Thursday evening. I'm not planning to stop this. Right. So without further delay, let's get into the actual interview session. Okay. So, and then just focus on two things. I'm going to go very slow. I'm going to use very simple English, but I'm just going to go in the structure. Agile overview. So someone can ask you, hey, have you worked in the Agile environment before? What has your experience been there, right? Or another way would be, hey, what is Agile about? Or why do people use Agile in company? They're all like interrelated questions, right? You should understand that they're trying to ask, what is your experience in Agile and how your company got benefit out of it. So this is how I would suggest. Hey, of course, every company has implemented Agile in different ways, and I'll probably walk you through my experience that I had working for one of the company in the past. So we barely started our project, and before we started the project, we actually had brainstorming sessions for a few days. The part of that brainstorming session was to make sure that we all come up with wish list, and like everyone was just dumping their ideas. And the biggest thing after we did was, once we had all the ideas collected, we started categorizing them into epics and features. That was the main goal while we were in the wish list phase or in Agile. And once we had a clear understanding on what are the epics and what are the features required for a particular project, we actually worked with our internal team members and other stakeholders to identify dependencies between these epics and features, and understanding what are the priorities for us, right? Because we had to come up with the minimal viable product. So we created a lot of in the product backlog, we created a lot of epics and features, worked internally with our team, identified dependencies, and then we finally came up with our raw plan. This is what we want to push into market, right? And from those epics and features, we started breaking that epics and features into multiple user stories. And that's how we built our sprint backlog. We had a 2 weeks long sprint in our company, and every 2 weeks we were working on the sprint backlog and putting that into the market. So my initial role when I was working for this company in the product backlog and sprint backlog was, in product backlog, I was mostly focusing on the prioritization of the epics and features to make sure we are really coming up with a good MVP, minimal viable product that customers can use, and then increment after that, like adding small features on top of it. Once we defined that priority, I was working really closely with my product manager to come up with the detailed user stories, writing acceptance criteria, conducting the pre-grooming sessions and grooming sessions, working with my development team to help them understand what the story is about if there are questions within the sprint, helping my testing team understand how they should test the story. And finally, just at the end, when the stories are ready, I'll just do the user acceptance testing and make sure that that goes live in time. And once the stories are live, I'll just go ahead and monitor their data and make sure everything works well in production. So this is what had been my role in Agile so far. Do you guys see, have I said anything different than what we have covered in the class? Right? Nothing. Exact same story.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, just a second. I think two people had a question. Savit, you had a question?
I did, but he can go first. It's okay.
Okay, go ahead, Amin.
So this is my role as a product owner come business analyst, because in Agile, there's no concept of separating the Scrum Master.
Yeah, you would not separate that from your side unless someone really wants that bifurcation from you.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, Savrit.
Okay, my question is, I heard your thing, but you never mentioned something that is more personal, like, okay, we created this product. I mean, I'm not judging you, but I mean,
I intentionally did not say that. Did not say that.
So my question is, do we need to personalize, like, this is the company we were working for and this is what we created, or you just have to be very flat, like the way you were
talking? Give that. You can say that if you want to. I intentionally did not say that in this class. But if you want, you can probably say company's name. You have to say company's name, right? And
Okay.
I did not say company's name because everyone's company is going to be different. That's not irrelevant. When I say I worked for some company in the past, there has to be a company name, and
Mhm.
there has to be a project name. So project name could be digital mortgage, digital marketing, or mobile application for you all.
But I mean, what is more appropriate?
It is more appropriate to say that. But if you
Okay.
don't remember that, it's still fine. You can still go with this flow, and it is still
Okay.
acceptable.
Got it.
Cool. Let me share one more information just to let you know what did I really say in the interview in this question. So it'll help you understand what we are BRD. This is the one. Okay. Are you guys still able to see my screen?
Yeah.
So if you guys see here, what I said here was purely this information portion of this. This is what we do in wish list. This is what we do in product backlog. And this is what I do within the sprint. And these are the meetings I had. And this is what I do in the ongoing sprint. This is exactly what I said in my answer. And you can just say that I was working on the mobile application project and for this for XYZ company, and just say these things. That's completely fine. Go ahead, Shrey.
What was the end part? Like, I know like how to initiate and everything. What do we do at the end part? Like, what was the end part again?
End part, I just said that we once we launch the product, we monitor the success of that product, right? By monitoring the data and making sure how many applications have come through. And if everything looks good, we call that release as a success. And then we keep iterating from there on.
Is it our job to monitor like how many users are we getting?
Yes.
Okay.
It's our job. It's your product, right? If you can't be happy about it, then who else will be going to be happy about it? Because you have to share this information that, hey, we launched this cool product and about 1,000 customers signed up in like 2 months. Something on those lines, right? So let's go to the next question. BRD components. What are the BRD components? If the BRD components, when just don't get confused, people can ask you this question in different ways. First would be, hey, can you give me an example of a BRD that you have written? Or can you walk me through the index of the BRD? Or what are the components that were there in the that is there in the BRD? And BRD is business requirements document. So you can, this is where you can get more personalized if you have to. And this is the reason we have done this project in the class. So you can say, hey, I was working on this mobile application project when we created the business requirements document. And in that business requirements document, we had index, we had stakeholders name or the approval section. We had version information, BRD version. We had the project scope, project background. We had assumptions, we had constraints, we had appendix. And in addition to all this, there was one big section that I was working on, which was high-level business requirements. In this section itself, there was so much that I was working on. I used to add process flows. I used to add mockups in this document. I used to talk about business requirements, business rules. I used to talk about the threshold conditions. What are the minimum requirements? What are the maximum requirements? I was thinking about the content management requirements, then the ADA, American Disability Act requirements, some high-level error messages, high-level calculation logic. I can just go on and on, but it's a pretty big document that we used to create. And usually when I create BRD, this is the format that I follow. And that's all they want to know. So again, everything that we have read in row number 9, whatever I remember, I just said from that. We don't have time to go back and say them all the 18 points that is there in row number 9. But I think even if you're able to remember 6 or 7 from them, that would be a good win for you. You will not have time to, and do not try to say all 18 points in one answer or in because it will be too long for someone to listen to them. 6 or 7 should be more than enough. And I can tell you, even 90% people will not even say those 6 or 7 points. So I still till date when I take interviews for a BA, when I ask them what is the difference between the BRD and FRD, I hardly get a point or 2 from that. So even if you say 6 or 7, you're well ahead in the game. Don't worry about that. So that's what you say in BRD components. Someone can put you on the spot about, give me an example of a business requirement. How do you write that? So I really want you guys to remember some business requirements, some good business requirements from our projects of digital mortgage and mobile application. We have not covered the digital marketing yet, but try to remember 3 or 4 business requirements that we have in the spreadsheet. Try to remember them. So whenever someone talks about an example, hey, give me an example. Hey, let me talk about a situation that I was working for this project. Again, always STAR, situation, task, action, and result. Let me talk about the project that I was working for company X, and we were working on this particular feature. I was tasked to write a business requirement for this particular feature. So we were writing the requirements for credit card information, and the key requirements there were, hey, what kind of credit cards are we going to allow to be accepted for making payments, right? And the type of credit cards, each credit card starts with some different number. How should we identify that which credit card starts with which number without asking customer that it is Amex, it is Discover, it is Visa, or it is MasterCard? It is automatically picked up by the requirement that you have written. By development team will work on it. So the way I will articulate this, some business requirements is, so first is I have to find out how many types of credit card will be, how many types of credit card will be allowed by our mobile application to make a payment. When we were collecting payment, we had to determine the minimum and maximum amount that will be collected for payment from that particular credit card. We also had to define a lot of negative scenarios where, hey, if a payment is failed for some reason, like card is expired or card doesn't have insufficient fund, how should we handle those situations? So these are the kind of business requirements I was writing. And of course, I can go into more detail about how to create the process flows, how I created the mockups for these things. But I believe you got the hint of what I was working on. And let me know if you want to elaborate more on this. So someone can ask you this, give me an example of a business requirement, not example of business requirements document. They are different things. Business requirements is a part of business requirement document, right? When someone says, give me an example of a business requirements document, then you're going to talk about the BRD components. But when someone talks about, give me an example of a business requirement, you can probably talk about this payment option. Or just pick any other feature that we have covered in the class and start talking about that. Right? So that's the business requirement portion. Are we good? Go ahead, Amir.
In Agile, every story is addressing a business requirement, usually.
When we talk about business requirements, let's assume it's always waterfall.
Okay.
In Agile, we would always use jargons like user stories and acceptance criteria.
Okay.
Do not use word requirement in Agile.
Okay.
Okay. And you can be very confident when someone asks you about a business requirement in Agile. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about waterfall. Because we used to say it as acceptance criteria. Be super confident, because the person who's asking you, that person is making a mistake by asking that question in a wrong way. Right? So in Agile, you always talk about wish list, product backlog, sprint backlog, epics, features, user stories, and acceptance criteria. In waterfall, you always talk about scope document, BRD, functional requirement document. Then there are some other things that we'll be covering in future classes.
Thank you.
So they can trick us also, like I heard that, like mixing up things that they can.
I trick people. I trick people in the interview. I like to put them on the spot and try to see how well they can handle uncertain situations. So there are interviewers who may intentionally do that. Sometimes people pair up, like one of them will be a good cop and one of them will be a bad cop. Like one of them will be super aggressive and rude to you in the interview, and one of them will be super nice and sweet to you. Just to give that flavor and see how you work with different people and how you really handle that pressure situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had attended one interview where I'm usually a person who takes a lot of responsibility at my office. And when I interviewed at one place, they asked me what was my role. When I explained this was my role, that lady asked me, hey, if you did all this thing, what was your boss doing? right? So I started laughing. I can totally see. I did not lose my confidence there, right? I totally see from where you are coming. But I just tell you, I have a personality where I take up more responsibility, and I'm an easygoing person. I can really earn trust like in few days when I work with someone. And my boss was super comfortable to like give all the responsibilities to me. And just to let you know that he does not know that I'm trying to look for another job. He would never leave me. So you handle that with a positive mindset, right? We don't have to get afraid when someone is asking or cross questioning us. That's the essence of it. They intentionally try to become tough on you and see how confident you are and how can you negotiate those things, right? It will not come in your first interview, but in 3 or 4 interviews, you will get there. It's not a big deal. So next one is agile versus waterfall, or pros and cons of waterfall and agile. They are the same thing. So again, no theory here. Okay, when you're talking in the interviews, no theory here. We always have to relate it to our past experience or the past projects that we have covered in the class. The moment you say, hey, this is how agile works and this is how waterfall works, you lose the interview. Okay, you've lost the interview right there and then. It should be always with your experience. So I'll just take a stab at it again. So there are a lot of different differences between waterfall and agile, but let me share a few that I've personally witnessed while working for company X, and we also saw some good outcomes about that. So we were working on this digital mortgage project, and while working in agile environment, we were mostly focusing on small features as opposed to focusing on the entire project at once. And which I mean by that is I was just focusing on small user stories, and we were working in iterations. We had a 2-week sprint. Every 2 weeks, we were able to deliver things in production, and we were working on very small user stories. So our goal was to implement minimal viable product when we were working through agile, and we were purely relying on communication and less documentation, because we do not have that much time to create detailed documentation. Agile is like our team was a team where we were really communicating well. We were sitting next to each other. We were co-located. If we have any question, I just walk up to someone's desk and ask them, hey, how can I solve this, right? So those two things are really key when we talk about agile versus waterfall, like benefits that agile adds. And the third one is the speed to market. Like we were able to deliver like one small functionality every 2 weeks. Just imagine, we delivered close to 50 functionalities in like probably last 18 months. And all those functionalities were not just implemented. It was implemented after users have given us their feedback. We constantly found out what users were looking for, and we started improvising that every 2 weeks. And we created a really brave product after that. So these are the things I feel really works well in agile. In waterfall, if I would say waterfall is I had worked in waterfall, I think about a year or 2 years ago from now for this company. And it was a very extensive document related project. Like I had to create business requirements document. I had to create functional requirements document, which was very extensive. We spent almost 3 months in working on those documents with so many stakeholders, finding out all the information from all the questions that we had. We worked with so many stakeholders, get all those answers laid down, create process flows, create mockups, create user journey, get the sign-offs, give the KT sessions and whatnot. It's super laborious and extensive when we talk about requirement gathering phase. And this is, of course, a phased approach. Once the requirement gathering was done, then only we started developing something. So imagine, like in Agile, we had 6 weeks. In the 6 weeks, we have delivered 3 products. In Waterfall, in 3 months, we have not delivered a single product. But we are going to talk about it now. Once development starts that thing, they start writing the code. Once they start writing the code, then they will test there is a testing team which will test that. After all this thing has happened, it took about 9 to 10 months, and then we rolled out a product. First product was launched after 12 months. So speed to market was really less, like really slow. In addition to that, we had put in a lot of documentation, zero communication, because everything was considered based on documents approval. So it was very hard for us to manage change request within that. So this is what I would define. This is how waterfall works. There are some places where waterfall is still a good idea when we are working on some new projects where no one has any clarity on those projects. Then I would say waterfall is a better place. because we have time to breathe, time to think, and we can deliver a better quality product. But otherwise, Agile is the way forward for these days. So again, have I used any other jargons than what we've covered in the class? Same thing, right? It's just getting practice of using these jargons and fitting them in when you are speaking them. That's it. And you will get that. A lot of students have got this, and you will get this. I think you just need to spend 1.5 to 2 weeks focusing on this completely and speak in front of mirror 100 times, and you got it. Okay. So that's how you say differences between Agile versus waterfall. So in one interview, we do not ask, I think if it's a panel round, in 1 hour, we just had an interview like day before yesterday when I was with my boss. We had hardly asked 8 to 9 questions. That's it. In 1 hour, like 4 or 5 questions was asked by him, 4 or 5 questions were asked by me. So like 10 questions in 1 hour. So if you see 10 questions in 1 hour gives you about 6 minutes, 6 minutes to answer, right? So one question you have to take about 2 minutes is max. I think 2 to 2.5 minutes is max you should talk about. After that, interviewer will have question within that answer that you've given. Some carry forward question from that, and it will be another minute or 2. But usually if an interview is for 1 hour, you'll probably see about 8 to 10 questions. Interviews about half an hour, you'll probably see about 5 to 6 questions. And then you have to ask question in return at the end. They will say, what questions do you have for us? And we have to come up with really some smart questions at the time. And I'll prepare you for that, what kind of questions we need to ask. Usually it is about the team, what kind of teams, how many Agile teams we have. If it is about Agile, how many Agile teams we have. What projects you're working on right now, right? What is the biggest challenge of the company that you're solving right now? Something on those lines. Something very different that nobody asks, but we will be asking them. Cool. So so I think so far we have covered this interview questions. If I'm not wrong, this makes up 30 to 40% of your interview. If you practice this well, this makes up 30 to 40% of your interview. Any questions? We are at time, but if there is any question, I can talk about that.
Yeah, James, I have a very quick question. So I'm kind of confused, and maybe the responsibilities and the title is overlapping. I'm trying to understand the Scrum Master, and I know Scrum Master, they are the ones who do Agile, right? No.
Scrum,
So I'm trying to understand.
we have not talked about Scrum Master role yet in our class. So I think once we start our class this Saturday, you'll see completely what Scrum Master role is about. But Agile is not driven by Scrum Master.
But it's part of Agile. It's one of techniques of Agile, right? Because I thought
it's not technique. It's a role. It's a role.
It's a
right?
role. Okay.
It's a role. So like in Scrum, in Agile, you have product owner, developers, quality analyst or quality engineers, if you want to call them, and you have a Scrum Master. You may have a business analyst. You may not have a business analyst. But this is what your team makes up in Agile. And Scrum Master role is to make sure that all the user stories that you've created is delivered on timely basis, and making sure that there is no conflict between the product owner, business analyst, developers, and quality analyst. And if there is any roadblock, like any blocker for any of the story that your story cannot complete because you're waiting on information from some other team, it's Scrum Master's role to solve that conflict or make sure that information comes to you. So it's a very short role. Scrum Master role, I can tell you, you hardly work for an hour in the company. That's it for one team. You just need 1 hour every day to handle one team as a Scrum Master. So usually when you are hired as a Scrum Master, they make you handle 2 to 3 teams at the same time, not just one team.
Okay.
Because you repeat your work, same responsibility again and again.
Okay, because my understanding was that Scrum, Kanban, XP, and there was one another.
Safe.
I thought these 4 are the types of Agile methodologies, but I'm mistaken about it then.
These four are types of Agile. That's true. Scrum is not Scrum Master. Scrum Master is a role within Scrum,
Okay.
right? Scrum is not Scrum Master. Scrum is a methodology that we are learning in the class. Within that
Ah.
methodology, we have a Scrum Master, product owner, business analyst, developer, and quality analyst.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense?
So we have not covered that. Okay. All right.
Yep,
Thank
we have
you.
not covered that yet.
I have a question. So, you know, like the whole interview, like if what if the interviewer will go like really deep into the past project, because we haven't done it actually, because you know sometimes he can ask you like how long it took you to create a functional document. So I mean at that instance, like do you think that the answer will be the correct answer, or you know?
Yeah. So any BRD or FRD that you collect, that we do in the class, that I said, right? It takes about a month to write a BRD and about a month and a half to write an FRD. And we are going to talk about our actual projects that we've done in the class, so that you don't fumble, right? I really want you guys to know these 3 projects on your fingertip.
Yeah.
Uber application, and I'll be giving you one good mobile application that you can relate with. But digital mortgage and digital marketing, you need to remember these 3 projects on your fingertip. We have done this extensively in the class. I can tell you, even when you work in the companies, you will not get this much knowledge about any project. It will take you years to get to this level of knowledge for the same project. So if they ask, if they go deeper in the projects, it's even good, because we're talking about a project which we already learned in the class and we know how exactly that works. That is the reason I want you to create a BRD mockup and user journey, so you exactly know how this project works. Right? Cool. I think we are at time, guys. Looking forward for our class on Saturday. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask you one thing. Are you guys okay if we skip the class this Sunday? We have a festival here, Holi, and I was just thinking to go somewhere with my son, and we can probably make up this class next week or a week after that, whenever we have time.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's okay. Yes, sir.
Cool. It will also give you all time to catch up on the classes that we have done so far. Just you guys can still be on the call on Sunday morning if you want to, from 10 to 1, and have a session among yourselves if you want to do something on that, like a group exercise or anything like that.
Okay.
I can keep the Zoom open, or you can use Teams. And once again, I have not stopped anyone to talk to each other. If you guys want to talk to each other and like work on one-on-one or do interview practices together, you guys are always welcome to do that. Just go to Teams, schedule a meeting over here on the top you see, and start talking with each other based on your availability and convenience.
Okay.
Cool. All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys
Thank
later.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.